This is the news that we are waking up to for Thursday, February 20th, 2025. This is day 1093 of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine and day 40 of the subversion of the U.S. federal system by malign foreign powers in the person of Donald Trump. On a personal note, we are 4 days away from the 3-year anniversary of this war and the 2-year anniversary of my arrival here in Kyiv. And I can't begin to express to all of you how deeply grateful I am that we are on this journey together and that you make it possible for me. Thank you. So last night was a loud night, boy. But here's what's interesting, right? The Russians sent 161 drones. 80 of them were shot down. 78 were taken out with electronic warfare. That's 158 out of 161. It's a 98% interception rate. But what's really interesting is, according to the Ukrainian armed forces, according to the Ukrainian Air Force specifically, 78 of these drones were simulators. They were decoys intended to overwhelm air defense, not actually packed with charges. So about half of the drones that come in every night are just a distraction. Oh, now here's something interesting. I can tell you exactly what time it is. I don't know if you can hear it, but a helicopter has just flown over the place here. And there'll be another one in a minute. And those are evac helicopters headed to the main military hospital. The apartment building is on the flight path for them. And every day, same time, they come over carrying warriors, wounded warriors from the front where they have been triaged in some kind of meatball surgery to the main military hospital where they'll be taken care of as best the Ukrainians can. This scene of devastation today is the anniversary of the Heavenly Hundred, of the Maidan Revolution. Now, on this day in 2014, the people of Ukraine stood up. They took to the streets by the hundreds of thousands. And they had been in the streets for months, by the way, right through the cold of the winter, when finally the pro-Russian dictator in charge of the country sent goons to start shooting them. And so from the hotel, you can't see it in this picture, but, or can you? No, it's facing the wrong way. A hotel just over here, gunmen on the roof, unknown to this day, men who could very well still be in the police force or the armed forces of Ukraine, still ratting out the Ukrainians to their Russian handlers, opened fire on this crowd of peaceful protesters. And the situation turned unpeaceful real fucking fast. And that is what led to the Ukrainian president at the time fleeing the country to Russia, where he still hides to this day. Now, on this day of remembrance of the Heavenly Hundred, which, by the way, is 111 people altogether, who died fighting for democracy, I think about the Americans who are in the streets today. Because we're in the same boat. Make no mistake. A pro-Russian Kremlin creature is sitting in the Oval Office right now, tearing down 100 years of progress in the United States, determined to become king and emperor, determined to create a permanent underclass by tearing apart the economy of North America with his bullshit tariffs, the very tool of economic destruction that deepened and lengthened the American Great Depression by years. And he's doing it to us again on purpose. Make no mistake. It's sorry, I keep using the word obscene because I can't, it's the best word for what is happening. And how Americans are sitting there cheering it on is beyond me. It's a betrayal of everything we are supposed to believe in and hold dear. And on this day of remembrance, the Ukrainians, the only people on the front line bleeding and dying every day for democracy in the world, they have to listen to the shit from this cunt. It's unbelievable. The things he is saying. He is repeating the Russian lie that Zelensky is illegitimate, that he's a dictator, that he wasn't elected. This is a lie. He is repeating the lie that Europe is responsible for this war and hasn't spent nearly as much as America in the defense of Ukraine. This is a lie, a blatant lie. Go to ukraineoversight.gov if you don't believe me and look at the numbers from the General Accounting Office. Every dime that has been sent to Ukraine is documented there because we have transparency in a democracy. And this fool gets in front of a microphone and says, he doesn't know where the money went. Half the money is missing. This is bullshit of the first order. People who believe him are fools. They are the useful idiots of a malign foreign power that has subverted the federal system of government in the United States in order to weaken America in the eyes of the world and return Russia to its imperial ambitions. Fools, one and all. And in service of this clown, we have these ass-kissing sycophants who dared say to Zelensky, warn him that if he keeps bad-mouthing Tangerine Palpatine, that it's not going to go well for them. This comes on the heels of Donald Trump saying that Zelensky had fucked up the rare earth deal. Zelensky didn't fuck it up. Zelensky didn't undermine it. Zelensky didn't torpedo it. Zelensky rejected it because it's a terrible fucking deal. It is the colonization of Ukraine by American power. The antithesis of everything that America is supposed to be. And you have Trump's gang of goblins and ghouls acting like the gangsters they are, threatening the world to not dare speak badly of the orange asshole. Fuck that. Fuck that noise. You got Zelensky, you got Musk here repeating the lie that Zelensky is not legitimate. Now, I'll tell you, so there's two things about this I want to say. One, this attack, these constant attacks on Zelensky from the Americans who are supposed to be the allies of Ukraine have led directly to the Ukrainians falling in line in their support of the president of Ukraine. It's like with your little brother, right? You can beat the shit out of your little brother all you want, but somebody else hits your little brother, you're going to support your little brother. And the people of Ukraine, Zelensky's approval ratings have gone from 52% to 57% and are rising as these unwarranted, baseless attacks against him permeate the Ukrainian consciousness. People are lining up right behind him. It's just like the pointless Shahed's attacks against Ukrainian civilians, right? Do you think that all of those people in Odessa that are freezing right now in their apartments for 2 days with no light, no heat, no power because of a Shahed attack are thinking to themselves, oh, we should give up. We should submit to the will of the Kremlin? Bullshit. They are enraged. They are enraged, as well they should be. Now, the other curiosity, now maybe it's just a coincidence, but there is this Rapid Response 47 team that backs up the president anytime there's any whiff of discontent with him. And they push out this kind of bullshit disinformation. What I want to say about this is that rapid response is the name of not one, but two Wagner PMC-backed rebel groups in Africa, in Mali and in Sudan, that worked to overthrow the government in Mali, which they did successfully, and is working to take down the government in Sudan. They are the Rapid Response Forces. Now, it is very curious to me that the President of the United States has a disinformation group dedicated to him called Rapid Response 47. You know, these guys don't have any imaginations. They reuse the same shit over and over and over again. That, to me, just screams Russian disinformation. And, of course, this nonsense about how in America we hold presidential elections no matter what does not take into account the Constitution of Ukraine, which prohibits elections during times of martial law. It does not take into account that, I know they say they're the Civil War, right? But come on, those states seceded from the Union. They were not occupied by a foreign adversary by force. It's a very different situation. Very different. There are at least 4 million Ukrainians in the occupied territories who will be denied a voice in this thing. Not to mention the 7 million or so that are overseas or out of the country. So this whole notion of Zelensky must hold elections in a time where there isn't the money for it, and it's not safe. You get a bunch of Ukrainians lined up to vote, what's going to happen? The Russians are going to send missiles and Shaheds at them. Right? So this is just the oligarchs spewing their lies and nonsense, which the script comes, be very clear, directly from their Kremlin handlers. There's no other way to look at this. Not if you're paying attention. Now, the good news here is that most of the world is not insane or enthralled to the Coppertone con man. And so, President of the Czech Republic, Peter Pavel, posted this on Twitter. What would be the value of an election held in a country that has been defending itself against the aggression of a neighboring nuclear power for 3 years? 2 nuclear powers now, by the way, right? North Korea and Russia. How to organize elections with a fifth of the territory occupied by occupying troops and the whole country under daily shelling. How do you do it? Extremely difficult. To call the president of such a country a dictator requires a great deal of cynicism. Trump's bread and butter is cynicism. He counts on it. He counts on you not caring. He counts on you believing the lie. Oh, there's no difference between Russia and the U.S., right? Putin's favorite lie. The lie he's been telling his people for 30 years to keep them in control. Nonsense. Nonsense of the first order. I'll play this for you because it's just so great to listen to. Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Let me see if I can do this. Can I do this? Sorry. Let's try it again, shall we? This, of course, is Roger Wicker, Republican senator and chairman of the U.S. Senate Armed Services Committee. Now, if you're not familiar with American politics, the Senate is the most powerful legislative body in the U.S. It's half of our Congress, or our parliament, one of the bicameral houses. And the U.S. Armed Services Committee is one of the most powerful committees in that august chamber. This guy is the chairman of the Armed Services Committee. Let's see what he has to say.
Putin can be trusted in these negotiations?
No. Putin is a war criminal and should be in jail for the rest of his life.
Putin is a war criminal who should be in jail for the rest of his life, if not executed. There is still sanity in the United States. I know it's tough right now, but Donald Trump does not represent the American people nor the will of the American people. And it's so important for our Ukrainian allies to understand that we, right now, the United States, the greatest power in the history of the world, are dealing with the same enemy that they are. The Russians have subverted the U.S. federal system to their will in the person of Donald Trump. I cannot say it enough because too many people are ignoring that reality or are afraid to face it. But it's real. It's here. It's now. And some Americans are paying attention. Now, not only are the Americans paying attention, the Europeans are paying attention. Macron has had 2 emergency sessions, one on Tuesday, another one coming up with European leaders, where it appears that they have agreed to fund Ukraine. They're working on a package short term of 6 billion euros, which may be growing to 10, fingers crossed. That would be a good infusion of weaponry to Ukraine, including 1.5 million artillery shells, air defense ammo, equipment for military infantry brigades, and some other things. Now, that's not all. That is the first installment of what could turn out to be a 10-year package of 700 billion euros. With that kind of money, Ukraine doesn't need the United States. And the United States can focus on its problem, which is how does it get its democracy back out of the hands of ignorance and greed and cult of personality. Because that's where we're at, America. That's where we're at. Now, what we're looking at here is Macron and Keir Starmer. These guys, one is the Prime Minister of Great Britain, Keir Starmer, and Macron is he Prime Minister or President? It's so confusing over here, right? The head of state and the head of government are different over here for some weird reason, but because of aristocracy, that's why. So anyway, Macron and Starmer are both headed to Washington for an emergency meeting with Trump. This is the UK and France. These are some of our closest allies, some of the largest economies of the world, and longtime Democratic friends and allies. And they are headed to DC for an emergency meeting because this is a fucking emergency. That's why. We are seeing the realignment of the world with America on the side of the axis of evil. The axis of evil with Trump in charge is now Russia, Tehran, Beijing, Pyongyang, and DC, if you can imagine such a thing. Okay, that's enough of Trump. Now, a couple things here. I'll play this. This is the Syzran oil refinery in Samara, Russia. This was hit yesterday in a drone attack. The governor says there was no damage. Really? Now you can only see 2 of the fires here, but there's a 3rd fire on the property of the oil refinery as well. And I don't know how there's no damage. Now this, I should warn you, this is a very graphic video. I don't generally include these. But I'm going to play it. And what this is unknown, really. We don't know why this explosion happened. This explosion may have happened because of partisan activity, rebel activity, Ukrainian activity, or it could just be the incompetence of the Russians. who in their oil industry have lost all of the Western expertise that built and kept the systems running. We know that they've been denied access to Western expertise for the most part for 3 years now. And these guys don't invest in maintenance. They don't take care of their shit, right? They're gangsters. They squeeze everything out of what exists without ever putting any money back in. And so you can see the tragedy that befell these workers here on this platform. Because of this explosion and this subsequent fire, 23 oil wells in the oil fields of Tuyum in Russia are shut down at this time. They're not producing. That's a lot of oil to take off the market. And it's going to have repercussions. It's definitely going to have repercussions. The world falling price of oil that we've seen is going to have at least a small spike in the short term because of this. I think that that's going to happen without question. Now, again, we don't know why this happened. The Ukrainians have not taken credit for it. No partisan group nor rebel group has taken credit for it, which almost 48 hours after the fact leads me to believe that it's likely Russian incompetence. It's an industrial accident, and a tragic one for the men involved. But good news for Ukraine and the free world, because it means less money in Russia's pocket, right? I would point out, too, that the Ukrainians have never struck oil fields, to the best of my knowledge. Refineries, pipelines, etc., but not the oil fields. Now, finally here, I think, this is video, too. This is the Lebdev computer engineering and precision equipment facility in Moscow. For everybody who always says, why don't they hit Moscow? Why don't they hit Moscow? Legitimate military targets inside of Moscow get hit all the time, guys. But you're right. Ukraine doesn't commit war crimes. They're not bombing residential buildings and kindergartens and hospitals the way that the Russians do. And make no mistake, the Russians do that very intentionally, because they want to deny this civilization to their enemies. They denied medical care by bombing hospitals, deny light and heat, throw everybody back to the 18th century by hitting electric generation facilities and heating facilities. They remove civilization by bombing the schools. All of the civil services that one expects in a civilized country, they target those in order to create refugees and destabilize the neighbors of their enemies. Fortunately, European civilization is a real thing. And the Germans, the Romanians, the Slovakians, the Poles, everybody has welcomed Ukrainian refugees in. Not to say that there haven't been problems, there have been. There's always going to be. But those problems are minimized when you treat people like human beings. And by the grace of God, the European Union has done that for the Ukrainians. Okay, last thing. There were reports on Telegram, and if you remember, when I first reported this, I said, look, this is only coming from Telegram. We don't really know, but we should talk about it. The claim that the Russians were making was that somebody sent them 80 VR headsets that were packed with explosives in the battery compartment and triggered when the cooling fan went on and blinded 8 Russian FPV drone operators. That claim has now been confirmed by the Ukrainian GUR, and it was in fact a Ukrainian operation to take out drone operators inside of Russia. Each one of these headsets was packed, I forget now just exactly, but with some C4, right? I think maybe 100 grams of C4, something like that. And again, when activated, so it's a nasty, messy business. I'm not saying that it's not. But the Russians don't have any qualms about doing the very worst things imaginable to Ukrainian women and children. Drone operators, the ones murdering Ukrainian civilians and armed forces members every day, are certainly legitimate targets by any means necessary. Okay. Guys, that's the news that we are waking up to for the 20th of February. I'm Peter Alexievich, and with a little bit of luck and by the grace of God, this video is going to render, and I'll get it up on the Patreon. And I'll see everybody in the live tonight. Thanks.